Hello there, this is Preston Gaylor from Stewartstown, Pennsylvania. I'm also secretary of our at-large Jigsaw chapter, and you're listening to Why Canes Connect.
Hey there, Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am the treasurer of the Keystone chapter. Joining us today is both a guest host and today's guest. From the Jigsaw chapter, it is Preston Gaylor. Preston, how are you today?
Hello, David. I'm doing good. I'm very excited about this. And yeah, thank you for the invite and the warm welcome.
You are welcome. We wanted to bring Preston on. Preston is going to sit in for Lisa from time to time. So before we have him sit in on an episode and be the interviewer, we wanted him to be the interviewee. So today we're going to find out and learn more about Preston and everything he's got going on. He is on another podcast and he does some stuff moderating Facebook groups. So we're going to learn all about that. But Preston, why don't you tell us first, as much as you want, as far as your blindness journey goes? What do you have? How'd you get there? Things like that.
Sure. Well, I was born with ROP, or for newer people, it's retina optic prematurity. I was 1 pound, 13 ounces. I was actually supposed to be born in March, but I was born in December of 94 in Georgia. We actually moved to PA back in, I want to say 95 or 97. I was obviously very little, so I don't remember the time frame, but we were in Johnstown quite a bit. I still have some family up that way that we still go see often. But now I reside in the Harrisburg, York, Lancaster market of PA. I'm actually on the Maryland border.
Are you fairly close then to Baltimore, being in that area?
Yes. So I have gone to national headquarters for various events and stuff like that.
Throughout your life, has your vision, is that something what you have? Is it something that progressively gets worse, or can it be maintained where you can keep it in check? How does it work?
I can tell you right now, I do see some light and shadows out of my left eye. The right eye, I don't see anything out of that one at all. Okay. So I do have some light perception, and I do go to Hershey for pressure checks and stuff every 6 months.
It's funny you say pressure checks. I've been having some issues lately, and I have a little bit of vision in my left eye, but I've noticed over the last few weeks or maybe a month that it's gotten worse. And I got a little nervous the other day because I was going to my glaucoma specialist every 3 months or so. And the other day when I was there, he said, "Oh, you can come back in 6 months." And I kind of had a feeling he was basically throwing in the towel. Either that or because he knew I see these other specialists, maybe he thought, well, that's all we need. Why don't you tell us, you're on another podcast. Why don't you tell us about that?
Sure. I actually do two. I do tapings Mondays and Wednesdays, both at 3 p.m. Eastern. One is called Radio Connection Live, where we discuss anything going on in the world of broadcasting. So no matter if it's format changes, station sales, or layoffs, or air checks, we cover it all. And we also interview people from time to time in the industry. We interviewed a few voiceovers like John Williard, Vanessa James. We also interviewed Lori DeYoung from Baltimore. Not only do I help out with it, but a few of my radio freaks is what we like to call it. We actually help out. One's in Cleveland, one's in Tampa. The other is also in Florida. We got my friend Chris Newsbaum he lives in Delaware now, but he is involved with the NFB. And the other one I help out with, we actually started this. We're going to be celebrating 2 years in June, but it's called Vision Cast with JC and Friends, where we discuss technology, highlights from a blind and sighted point of view. We actually alternate because our one Wednesday we do a tech show with tech updates, randomness, show announcements here and there. And then the other Wednesday, we actually have several musicians on the podcast where we do talent, performances, poems, comedy, stuff like that. And that one's called Showcase Heaven.
I'll put both of them, the links in the show notes, but I didn't realize the one when you were talking about the radio stuff. I've always been into radio and TV. And when I was in college, we got a magazine at the library called it was at the time called Broadcasting Magazine. Now it's, I think, called Broadcasting and Cable, if it even still exists.
I think I read it online a little bit, the old
Okay.
versions.
I know VisionCast is available on Apple, but is the other one also available on Apple?
Yeah, you can find it on Apple, Spotify, Google, most of your podcast players. We actually use the new Spotify for podcasters, formerly Anchor, to distribute.
Do you find that to be pretty good? I know one of the issues with it becomes an issue if you leave Anchor for someone else. You then have trouble getting all your episodes to take with you, and I know that's been a complaint that a lot of folks have had over the years, especially with Anchor. Now, I don't know how Spotify is doing it, but you're pretty comfortable with Anchor or Spotify that way.
Yeah, I've been using that native app for at least a year or two because I got all my credentials saved for each podcast, so I kind of upload them as I go.
One thing that you haven't mentioned yet, and I think you talked about it when Lisa and I were talking to you the other day. You'd mentioned that you're a member of the Lions Club. Do you want to talk a little about that?
Yes. So I've been a member for going on 2, 3, 4 years, something to that effect. I actually used to go to Beacon Lodge in Mount Union, PA, and that's how I got involved. My mom was a member for a short time when we lived in Johnstown, and how I got involved was I actually had a family friend who I would spend time with a lot here in New York. She would take me to various events, and she was very community involved. And we were involved with the Lioness Club. So they were a branch of the Lions Club, but a few years ago, they actually dismantled that organization so that way the Lions can be all in one for females, males, and Leos. And when she passed on back in 2021, I actually kept her legacy alive by keeping the Lions Club going. We help out with any community thing you can think of. This Saturday, we're going to be doing a food drive, our spring food drive at the local grocery market called Zabels. We actually help out at the York Fair, selling brochures, stamping tickets. We also help out with the local carnivals every year here in the summer. It's my favorite part.
I know my uncle was a member of the Lions Club way back when, and my dad always would tell me about them. And as a kid, I went through, I don't know how many pairs of glasses over the course of a year because I either broke them or my prescription changed or whatever. So we were constantly, they always had the eyeglass collection places, and I always had a ton to give. So we would just either give them to my uncle to have him take care of them, or somebody had shopped in one of his stores and he would give them to him there, because we had a ton, because like I said, just constantly going through them, which was, I guess at the time was fairly expensive, although not in today's dollars, I'm guessing. So is that something that's still done? They still do the eyeglass collection?
Yeah, we still do that. We also do vision screenings. I've been getting involved with those. And we also been doing diabetes screenings. We have been doing a few of those. We also help out every Christmas. We do help out someone with family that has cancer. We actually have a local organization called Hope that deals with local cancer patients. So we actually give them Christmas gifts and make their
really
little
cool.
hut a little bit brighter.
You had mentioned technology and doing on VisionCast. I'm guessing you're pretty much into tech and going through all the different things. Let's talk about what you use. You use JAWS or do you use VoiceOver?
I use both, actually. I do have NVIDIA on my machine as a backup if I need it, but I also got my own Braille Sense 5 years ago now. So I got in a little bit of Android in me as well.
Okay. So I'm guessing VoiceOver you use on the iPhone, not on a Mac.
Right.
Okay.
VoiceOver for the iPhone. And how I got started, I actually got started pretty much almost 10, 11 years ago. My former tech teacher from the IU, he actually gave me an iPod Touch trial for a few months, and I liked it. And we got my own Bluetooth keyboard for it. And then I got an iPod Touch for Christmas. So I've been on iOS ever since. So like from 2008 through 14, before I went to CCB for training, I was on a flip phone.
Okay. I just read an article today where a lot of folks are going back to flip phones because they don't want all the screen time. And it just made me cringe because as blind and visually impaired folks, yeah, I get the whole screen time thing. But if you take our smartphones away, whether it's an iPhone or an Android device, with TalkBack, you basically make us, I can't read emails. I can't, unless I go on my computer. And if I'm obviously out and about, you've got nothing. I was out in Philadelphia today and I was using Seeing AI to read signs and to read some brochures that were on a table that I didn't know what they were. And so just imagine you had a flip phone on and you can't, what do you do?
I know. I will be like so lost.
It's also interesting that you mentioned the Bluetooth keyboard, because that's one thing that is, for me, a necessity if I'm going to send email from either my phone or from an iPad, because it's difficult for me to use the keyboard on whether it's the iPad or the iPhone. And to use dictation, it's really a crapshoot. So if you're sending a business-related text, I don't want to do it on my phone unless I'm using a keyboard, because who knows what's going to come out at the other end.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what I like about it is now I use my Braille Sense to pair my phone to Bluetooth. So I do it that way.
Okay.
If I compose any important stuff.
Any other tech that you use? Any other blindness-related tech that you use?
Well, somewhere here, I do have my A lady here somewhere. And I also have, a standard Braille labeler where you can label. I actually did label our Hallmark Christmas chocolates again this year. Well,
Okay.
At least mine.
Okay. Important stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
That's funny mentioning the A lady, because that was another sore spot. We used to have a clock radio in our bathroom so I could listen to either news or music or whatever, but I would constantly hit the wrong buttons or set an alarm for some crazy hour in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day when either nobody was home or I was the only one home and I couldn't figure out how to shut it off. So when we got our first A lady, it was the greatest thing that you could just say, "Hey, A lady, what time is it?" or "What's the weather?" or "Play this," or "Play that." And even though I know sighted folks also enjoy those features, I don't think they get how important it is for us to just be able to speak and to use things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a godsend. And I know we all say this every time, but tech has changed for us dramatically. And
Yes.
I'm very blessed to be living in that time frame.
I was listening to my friend Brian Fischler the other day on That Real Blind Tech Show. He was talking to the folks from Be My Eyes about their new virtual assistant and how awesome it is, where you could read a sign. Let's say you're traveling in an area that English isn't the first language, whether you're overseas or you're in a section of town that may have signs or menus in Spanish, let's say, and you don't know Spanish. You could ask it to translate it right then and there. So not only will it tell you, then you could ask, well, what are the chicken dishes, or what are this dish, or what are the appetizers, or it will, and just go right from there. So I know that's still in beta, but I can't wait to try that. Again, today using Seeing AI, it was nice, but it would have been nice to try that out with the new Be My Eyes virtual assistant.
Yeah, I actually look forward to getting my hands on myself. Because I do have Seeing AI on my phone, and I do have Ira and Be My Eyes. So I kind of use either or, depending on what I'm in the mood for.
Right. I it's funny. I typically use, and listening to That Real Blind Tech Show the other day, they were going over, some people would rather use this. And again, I know it's not virtual assistant. I don't remember exactly. It's a virtual something. They would prefer that over a person because they didn't want to bother a person to, "Hey, what does this say?" or "What's my room temperature set at?" or something like that. And I don't know if that's why I do it, but I would prefer either Seeing AI or Envision. I do use Envision every so often because it does have the magnifier. So if my vision is decent that day, and decent is all relative here, enough to at least check to see where a label is so I could then have it read to me. Uh, those are great to have, but in a pinch, in a real pinch, I'd have to have really crazy something going on to use that. And same
Yeah,
thing with Be My Eyes.
yeah, I agree. But I'm just thankful that they're there when we need them, because I know
Absolutely.
not a whole lot of people are gonna be around.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
don't mean that figuratively, but
No, it's definitely great to have all the tools. And again, like you say, it's not great being blind, but to be blind now, it's probably the best time because you've got these different tools and you have them all on one device. It's not like you have to go get 7 different items to carry around with you. Everything's in your pocket on your phone. And that
yeah,
makes it so much easier.
yeah, it's definitely a good tool, and I love it.
Why don't you tell us now? You had mentioned the other day that you are a moderator on a Facebook group or two. What do you do with that?
So basically, for both podcasts I do for Radio Connection Live and Vision Cast with JC and Friends, we both have Facebook pages. So myself, along with the rest of the team who I invite, we put up news stories, tech updates for the Vision Cast. We go live on our Radio Connection page for any format changes that we know about. And sometimes if we get advance notice, then we can schedule the live video.
And to do the live video, so you just using your webcam from your computer?
Yeah, I do my webcam, or I sometimes do it from my phone.
That makes sense too.
Preferably, I do it on the phone. It's much easier that way. I will have like whatever station is changing the format. I just have it pulled up on one device and then do the video on the other device.
And I think it's a little easier, at least knowing if you're holding your phone, you kind of know that, okay, I'm aiming it at my face. Whereas you're not always 100% sure with, I know with my webcam, because of the way I sit, I know I've got to tilt my monitor down to make sure it gets me in if I'm sitting down. And if I'm standing like I am now, and like I usually do with podcasts, it will only get from basically my lips down because it can't tilt up enough. So I actually, doing something in a couple of days, I actually ordered a webcam that I could mount somewhere else a little higher up so I can stand the whole time because I'm a stander.
Oh, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So in order to get more support, you would need a flexible webcam for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got
yeah.
it.
Yeah. So is besides the Facebook groups, what else do you do online? Are you on Twitter, LinkedIn, any place else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn for job stuff, because right now I'm looking into a lot of admin, clerk, or customer service.
Okay.
So I'm kind of all over. I got my LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster,
Okay.
and
Have you found job hunting difficult? Have you found that tough?
yeah, I mean, it can be. Luckily, during the pandemic, I have worked remotely for Inspiri Tech for helping out our unemployed for a contract with Voc Rehab.
Okay.
And I also done training work for Rite Aid with Robert Half for phone CSR support.
Have you found when you go to an interview and folks say, "Oh, well, I see that you're blind." Do they know it going in? When you go to an interview, whether it's on Zoom or in person, do they know going in that you're visually impaired or blind?
They sometimes do, but I really don't like say it. But I still tell them, "Hey, I can get to your location." I do tell them about what accommodations I need, and I'm always pretty good about forwarding my counselor's email onto any correspondence that they send me.
Do you think that hurts your chances of getting the position, knowing that these folks have to provide some accommodations? I've gone back and forth with a friend of mine. My friend is fully sighted. He is an HR guy, and he said, "Don't ever discount your experience and everything that you know just because you're blind. They won't or shouldn't. Obviously, they shouldn't turn you away just because you're blind." But I've always been under the impression, because I've been a business owner, I know how it is, especially a small business. I always fear that if someone it comes down to two candidates, more times than not, they're going to pick the cited candidate, whether that person is more qualified or not, just because they don't want to have to go out and either get JAWS or get some sort of other software, or maybe their software that they use in their business isn't any kind of compatible with JAWS. So it just makes it more difficult to even hire that person. And maybe it's not the small business. And I've been on that side. He says no. And obviously he's smarter than me in that because that's his job. But I always feel maybe it's always not best to say, but again, you don't want to start off a potential relationship with an organization, company, business, whatever, not on a lie, but holding something back. So I don't know what the right answer is there, whether you want to say that you're visually impaired and then, or you start working and then you say, hey, I need these accommodations. What do you mean?
Yeah.
So have you found any kind of issues with that when you disclose that?
Not gonna like lay line say I'm visually impaired, but I want to, let them know firsthand that, this is who I am and I'm still capable to do the work. And I would show my skills and experience off very well and prepare, the day or week before. But okay. I take those interviews as a stride because very good experience to get yourself out there and increase your speaking skills as well as, something to add to more potential persons.
I absolutely agree with that. The more interviews, whether you're intending on getting that job or it's a reach, it's always so important to just go and do it because you'll get more comfortable speaking to a potential employer and kind of honing your elevator pitch on yourself. And that can only help you in the long run as you move forward, whether you get that job or not. Obviously, if you get that job, you're good to go. But it's something that you should constantly try to maintain is those interview skills. So when you do need to use them again, you remember all the things that went on. Oh, I said this and I shouldn't have, or I should have said it this way, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I do get frustrated when they tell me we picked another candidate, but we'll keep your info on file. But usually when I reply to them, if it's not from a unmonitored email, I just say, well, thank you for letting me know. I'll be on the lookout. And I still press on. I mean, I'll be 30 in 2 years. So you got to press on the game, if you will.
Right. That's so important. Where you live, do you live in a very walkable area? Are you able to go places on your own without needing a ride from someone or calling an Uber or taking public transport? How is it where you live? Is that something that's easy for you getting around?
Yeah. So I do the whole 9 yards. I do use paratransit, Uber, Lyft, rideshare. Yeah, but as far as walking goes, I got in practice to go to our plaza where Rite Aid and our pizza place is. And last week, it was actually in the 60s. So I took my phone out. I used Google Maps and Blind Square to get to it. Okay. I did get a little sidetracked going to the pizza place, but luckily one of the bank teller was kind enough to steer me to the right direction. I got the route down.
Okay. And so that's fairly walkable. At least you can go there. I have a shopping center very close to me here too that has the CVS and a couple other places. If I needed to run and go get something, it's literally about 3 minutes away just by walking.
That's for mine too. Mine's actually about 3 minutes because I looked on Google.
I used to live in a place where not only wasn't there anything nearby, but there weren't even sidewalks on some of the major streets. So, using the little bit of vision that I have to try and stay on the right side, in this case, the left side of the white line, and not wander into the street, it was a little hairy, and I just hated to do it. It was just not an easy thing, and it was always so exhausting, even though I was only walking maybe half a mile to a mile. It was exhausting because I was concentrating so hard on staying on the correct side of the the line. So that's good that you have something close by.
So as far as other social media, I do have. I'm on Facebook, as you can imagine. I also joined the Instagram bandwagon a couple years ago, and I'm
Okay.
getting used to that. And my cousins and a few other school friends, they're on the big Snapchat bandwagon, so I'm
Okay.
getting used to that too.
Okay. That is one that I have not gotten on board with, both Snapchat and TikTok.
Oh, yeah, definitely not TikTok. I tried it before COVID and I didn't like it.
Okay. It's just so difficult. I also had tried it a couple of years back. My daughter loves it and unfortunately spends hours a day on it. But to create something for it, and she's not a creator, she's a consumer. And that's her when she gets home from work every night. That's what she wants to do. She just wants to sit and watch these 1 or so minute things. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do after working the day you had, fine. But to create stuff for it, it's so difficult to do all the cool things that sighted folks can do, and just almost impossible. Same thing with I did an Instagram reel a couple of weeks ago for the parents division. Parents of blind children, they're doing the candy fundraiser, and by the time this comes out, that will have been over. But I just needed to get the code for the once you got to the site and the URL. I had created a shortened URL for this fundraiser. And again, because on Instagram, unless you have, I forget how many followers or how many hours, your links, you can't just swipe to go to it. You've got to basically tell people where to go and either put it in the description where it's not clickable or put it on the screen in the video, which is that's all I wanted to do. And it was just so difficult to do, not being able to see it. And it was very frustrating. So usually when I create videos for Instagram, they're very basic. They're either graphics that I create elsewhere and then just upload as a video. And I've done that as well, but some of it is it's just not friendly to folks who are blind or visually impaired to do that easily, especially Instagram, because you have to, unless you use a third-party app, you have to do it on your phone, not on your computer,
right.
Maybe where you can use a keyboard or zoom in or any of that stuff. So yeah, that's so we'll get all your social links and I'll put them in the show notes in case people want to reach out. And
yeah,
I
feel for me as far as Instagram videos, I kind of do like a regular good day monologue, or I usually just put a little background music that they have for reels. So
okay,
it's kind of interesting.
Video is one thing that I'd love to do. Do you do anything with YouTube?
Actually, I was going to get into that. So I have done like a couple introductory stuff on my YouTube, but half the time for me, I just I'm subscribed to a lot of interest on there, like a lot of old weather radio stuff, TV commercial, air checks, radio air checks, EAS stuff. But our Radio Connection Live Podcast YouTube channel, we feature a lot of stuff we feature on each week's show, plus some other surprises.
Okay.
And I know for our Vision Cast YouTube channel, we're working on updating that, but we feature kind of what we do for White Canes Connect, where we post the audio onto YouTube.
Okay.
We
with just a static graphic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my friend Denny, he actually uses LumaFusion for all editing for our tech podcasts and stuff. So he puts in sound effects, graphics for the videos, and he does his magic.
That's something that I would like to do more of. I haven't done much with YouTube. It's funny that you mentioned commercials. A friend of mine and I were talking last week, and I ended up playing the clip of a commercial on my podcast. And on my podcast, I have a section called Just Listen. And it's usually when I'm out and about or something is going on. And it's just a clip or two of what's going on, usually a minute. Sometimes it's a little more if it's something that's somewhat compelling. But I played this old TV commercial that everybody, when you say the word ideal, everybody in this area, in the Philadelphia area, knows this place called Ideal. So I use that, and I grabbed the audio from the YouTube video with a program called Audio Hijack, which is great for stuff like that.
A few of our producers on VisionCast, we actually use that for recording. It's superb.
There's so many different things you could use it for. Just like you said, using it for straight up recording, grabbing audio from any source on the internet. As far as other apps on your phone, is there anything that is a go-to for you, whether it's vision related or something else?
Actually, besides all my social networking apps, I do enjoy my TV and music apps. So I got let's say I got Pluto TV, I got Sling TV, I got the free version, obviously.
Okay.
And I also use Local Now, Local BTV.
And that allows you to watch the different shows and just from your phone, whether it's Sling or any of the others that you mentioned.
Yep, you can watch movies, shows. A lot of them are on demand. And I know for Stir TV, which is owned by the St. Clair group, you can actually watch your local St. Clair TV station who streams newscasts. There's a bunch of other content up there. They also got music channels and stuff too. Speaking of music, when you're a 28-year-old guy and when you get into music a lot, that's why the radio's there for you. And I love it because you can have like whatever you want to listen to in your pocket. So I got iHeart, TuneIn, MyTuner, Radio FM, Radio.net, Media U, Forever Radio, which is one of our local companies here. They actually created an app for their stations. And I also have Odyssey and Podcasters. And yeah, I got a lot of music apps on my phone. I actually got 128 gigs on this thing. So it's nice.
Right. That is very nice. The news station that I typically listen to is a news station from New York, 1010 Wins, which is on the Odyssey app. And whenever I'm going any place, when we went to Pittsburgh for the state convention late last year, I basically listened to, I think it was KDKA, because that was the news station in Pittsburgh. So I kind of found out what the weather was going to be, and I could hear, what's basically going on in the city before we got out there. And that's very cool that you can do that now. And it's just outstanding.
I love it. So I started streaming back when I was a teenager, if you will, but I have done it in the early 2000s. But the problem was I was on dial-up, so I needed to pick the right bit rate.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely a different time.
At the time, I wasn't using like the radio directories or anything. I was just using Windows Media Player.
I know when I first started listening to radio stations, there was one from France that I loved, and I did it through iTunes. It was just through iTunes.
Wow. Yeah. I forgot. Well, actually, you know what? I think I did do that because I actually got my first iPod Shuffle back in like 06, 07. So I think we did download iTunes onto my XP, and I would do that.
That was very cool at the time. Now it's commonplace because you can just say to the A lady or the G lady, hey, play this station, or we have Sirius XM. I can say this station on Sirius XM, and boom, it plays it. Before we move on from this, going back to the TV stuff, when you play a movie, let's say on one of those apps, are they at all audio described, or you can't get that on there?
I think it depends on the app, but I have logged on to the Blind My Small before.
Okay.
So I checked out some of their content.
And as far as podcasts go, do you listen to any other blindness podcasts?
Yes. Besides my stuff, our stuff, I have checked out AppleVis, Cool Blind Tech quite a few times. I also checked out John Moson's podcast here and there. I know on my podcast apps, I'm subscribed to a bunch of stuff that I try and keep up with, especially sports. Since I grew up in the Pittsburgh area, I'm a huge Pittsburgh guy, obviously.
All three teams, all three clubs?
Yes, I hope we get a good season this year. That's all I ask.
So you also follow sports. Where do you listen to sports? On do you listen on same things on the different apps, or how do you do that?
Yeah, definitely on a lot of my apps that allow the content, or I do have a few regular radios here. I got three high def radios. I got a shortwave radio, and I got one pocket radio that I got for Christmas.
It's hard with the sports because they have licensing deals with certain places, so it's something sometimes you have to pay.
Yeah, that's why, I have a radio at the ready. And anymore, you have to be in the geographical market to get the game.
Right.
So
Right.
actually, going back to state convention last year, me and my friend Jason, who's a member of the Capital chapter, quick shameless plug to him, we actually we actually took a walk to, I think, the Hard Rock,
Okay.
and we had the Steelers game on. I had it on my phone, and they had it on the TV, so I was able to compare both sides, and it worked out great.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And that game was right across the river down the street.
Yeah,
Leaving, we had driven right past the stadium on the other side of the river, and you could see that the driver was saying the parking lot was full and everything. It looked packed. I thought that was very cool. And that would have been cool to go to a game like that there. Just would have been neat to go to that stadium and see that and see the new name Old Heinz Field.
I driven through like Heinz Field on school field trips when I lived back up that way. I just haven't been to like a hometown game.
And I guess now you're so much further away than you were from Johnstown. It's a little more difficult now to get to a game.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do have a lot of friends who are Baltimore fans, obviously, because we're close to the
Right. Okay.
city. So I have gone to Camden Yards.
Okay.
And I have gone to the Ravens Stadium
Okay.
a few times.
Okay. Now, have you seen the Steelers play there, or just gone to other Ravens games?
I actually had seen the Steelers play there before we moved down here.
Okay.
And I remember it's a game that I'll never forget because the Ravens won the entire game. I think the Steelers score was 0 the entire game.
Okay. But I'm guessing you wouldn't wear your Steelers gear there.
No.
Because that's such a rivalry, I think. And I just can't imagine. I don't know. In Philadelphia, if you walked in wearing, let's say they're playing the Giants or the Cowboys or the Redskins, if you walked in wearing the other team's colors, you'd probably not walk out alive.
I was going to say it's the same thing as, the Orioles playing the Nationals in like a Battle of the Beltway.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I guess we could talk about my NFB journey a bit. So I have gone to the Lions camps and the Helen Diller camp in Jersey, and I have gone to regular public school for my school curriculum. But I have been involved with the NFB here and there since, I guess, 2009. I went to my first youth slam in Maryland. I have gone in 2009, 2011. I have gone to my first national convention in 2010 in Dallas. And as far as training, I actually graduated from high school back in 2013. So I went to the Denver's Colorado Center back in 2014.
Did you do the whole stint there?
Yes.
So 9 months.
I did. Yep.
And how was that? Why don't you talk a little about that? Because that, to me, especially for someone young like you were at the time, I think it's an outstanding time to go. To me, it's so valuable, I would think.
Oh, it is. I mean, you have your good and bad days, but at the end of the day, they cater to you and they make you who the future you is going to become. So I actually got my first taste of cross-country skiing down there.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the highlights. I did do indoor rock climbing. I have done light rail down there too. I've never taken the train before. I've improved my slating skills here and there. I've done more cooking stuff. I like baking.
Okay.
So I've done like cookies, pizza, chicken breast.
Okay.
Maybe some bacon or whatever I'm in the mood to cook.
Okay. You talk about baking. When you are doing cookies, do you do something like the pre-made cookie dough and you just basically either they're already cut or you cut them and then basically put them on a cookie sheet, put them in, or do you make them from scratch?
I think for us, we do them here either or. I know for our Christmas cookies, we actually, uh, I think we do them from scratch.
That's one thing my wife loves to bake. And she's not visually impaired. She measures everything out and loves when the recipes go by weight as opposed to by a quarter of this or a half of this or 2 teaspoons of that. And it just makes it a lot easier because you don't need to A, dirty all those different things, but B, it's more precise than your teaspoon of something may be different from her teaspoon of something. And sometimes that could be the difference of something being great as opposed to being good. And that's one of the things, measuring whether it's dry stuff or wet stuff, measuring that, it makes it that's one of the issues that I have. And I try to measure using weight, even though if, let's say, a liquid, I may measure a liquid by weight, measuring it out beforehand, knowing that 32 ounces of boiling water, for example, is 930 grams. So I know
Right.
that if I do it that way, then I know from now on, when I have boiling water, 930 is the number I'm looking for if I need 32 ounces. But it's not something that you can say, oh, I'm just going to, it says I need 2 tablespoons of this. Well, 2 tablespoons of something else weighed this. So this must also weigh that. And that's not the case. It's just one of the things that when I'm making things that I kind of struggle with, wondering how much I'm putting on and so forth. So that's great that you do the stuff from scratch, because I know some blind folks that are almost afraid to touch their oven or cook stuff in their oven. And their big food thing is just using their app and using Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of those, and as opposed to making something that's a lot better for you from your house. So that is awesome that you do that.
I still have those apps on my phone. Don't get me wrong, but they're good. But sometimes you just want to like figure out what you want to make and just fire it up. And as far as measuring like the weight for food or like tablespoons, I feel like that's my struggle too.
Okay.
So I think, but I'm still trying to practice that. And as far as labeling stuff for like the oven, we actually got bump dots here now,
Okay.
thankfully. So, well, actually, more like puff paint.
And that's something I'll have to look into. On the mixer that I actually use to do these shows, it's a tactile knob, which is the reason I got it, because I couldn't see the ones that were the virtual knobs on my computer screen to know exactly where it was. But there's no notch or anything on the knob. So, for example, I know that if I turn the dial to, let's say, 1 or 2 o'clock, that's the exact spot I want it to be at to get the right voice levels and so forth. So we put something on there, but over time it wore off, because I think we used whiteout or something like that, or glue. I think it was like Elmer's glue, which was a trick that when I was back in elementary school, that's what the teacher would use to outline coloring pages so that, all the blind and visually impaired folks could color and stay within the lines. They would take Elmer's glue and just draw the outline with the glue and do it that way. The glue didn't work. It lasted maybe a month and, and then fell off. So then every time now I have to really fool around with the mixer to get it right. So and just like everything else, I think it's a trial and error type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's with anything. You just gotta see what works for you, and I guess adapt as the accomplishments go on. I did graduate from CCB back in October 14, and then I went to vocational school back in Johnstown to study office tech. That's how I got all my public speaking, CSR, office skills from. I did go back in 2019 to do a retail program trial, but it wasn't like a good fit for me per se.
Okay.
But I enjoyed what I learned though.
Okay. Was that part of the business enterprise program?
No,
Okay.
they were actually doing a deal with CVS Caremark. So thankfully, I still remember inventory and how the stock and label and stuff like that.
That is some good stuff that you've gone through there. And that is something that if you are, again, on the younger end of things and you're out of high school and maybe looking growing your skills as how you can be more mobile, do more in jobs, I would absolutely suggest going to either the Colorado Center or the Louisiana Center, just something that would be very, very helpful. And really, you would gain your confidence in doing that.
Definitely. And well, unless if you want to go somewhere like closer, I have gone to BISM in Baltimore for their summer program back in 2011. So I did there. I did blind inks in 2010, and then
that's in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 2012, I actually went to, I forget what it's called, but we went to Chester for a summer program.
Okay. Oh, CBVI.
It was called the Ideal Program. You familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar. There's that ideal again. I'm familiar with I'm familiar with CBVI. I actually did some training there. And to be honest, that's how I am the main reason why I'm in the NFB. I was in a group of people that had Warren Knight, and Warren called me and he said, "Hey, I'm in this thing called the National Federation of the Blind. Why don't you come to a meeting?" And I said, "Okay, I'll try it out." And here I am. So we can thank CBVI for that. But it was good to learn some of that stuff, and some of the stuff that I learned there at the time. And unfortunately, from that time, 8 or 9 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, till now, the JAWS skills that I had from there went away because BBVS never got me the software at the time. The software was super expensive, and they wouldn't cover it. They told me they would cover the computer, but they wouldn't cover the software for me. And I now have gotten approved for JAWS. I've been a voiceover person and a Mac person for the last 20 years or so. So I just stuck with the Mac and tried to learn voiceover. And I get by with voiceover, but I saw how much easier it seems JAWS is. And I would love to be able to, when I go, for example, to the state convention this November in Harrisburg, I'd love to be able to take a notebook with me so I can either take notes or go on the internet where I may need to fix a website that I've been working on or any of that stuff, as opposed to, you can't do that on your phone. That's one thing. And like I said earlier, with emails, I want to have a keyboard that I can actually type on, not either use dictation or use the virtual keyboard on an iPhone. And so I'm familiar with CBVI, but not with the program. Was the program I know they have dorms there. I saw the dorms there. So did you stay for, how long was that program?
I believe 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah, I went there July through August of 2012.
So you were actually there before I was there. I was there in 2014 or 2015. I know 2014 for sure, but that's actually, that place is probably 1.5 miles or 2 miles from my house, from where I'm talking to you right now from. That's how close it is to me. So yeah, it's very close. I drove by it yesterday. I had a doctor's appointment at the hospital that's maybe 2 blocks away from that, and I drove right by it.
Interesting.
So that's kind of neat. I didn't realize people came in from outside of the area. I knew people in this area would go, except for Philadelphia, but I didn't realize that when they had those programs where people stayed at the dorms, that it was from all around the state. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because VS did sponsor me to go, and I guess when we were picking out summer programs, my old counselor was looking, and he found one, and obviously I'm 2 hours from Philly, so right. I just stayed out there for the whole program.
Preston, it's been great having you on, and we look forward to you joining me for some upcoming episodes. That'll be great as we get together with different folks from within the NFB of Pennsylvania and outside when we have upcoming episodes. And so listen for Preston coming up in various episodes. He'll pitch in for Lisa every so often when Lisa's busy, like she has been now.
Yep. Whenever they need me, I will make time and contribute.
And it'll be great to have you on. And just so everybody knows, I want to let folks know, if you've got questions, comments, show ideas, please reach out to us. You can email us at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com, or you can do like Preston did and call in and leave a voicemail. And I know I didn't acknowledge that, Preston, when we talked the other night, but I did get that. And
Okay.
that was before we knew you were going to be coming on. So unfortunately, we probably won't use it. I'll have to go back and re-listen. But you can give us a call, 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes. Leave your name and town. If you do leave a voicemail, and give us questions, comments, show ideas, what you love, what you hate. If you have questions for Preston, please give us a buzz. If you listen to the last episode that Lisa and I did, we played a voicemail from Janice in South Carolina that listened to the episode that we did with Paul Howard and Chris Crawley, and she actually sang a little bit on it. It was very nice. It was a great one. It puts a smile on your face. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I'll put a link in the show notes for that, so you can hear Janice from South Carolina leave her voicemail. And again, do that and we'll play it on an upcoming episode. We'd love to hear from you. Again, 267-338-4495. Preston, thanks again for joining me today. And thanks everybody for listening.
Indeed. Thank you all. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.